What's up, guys? This is teacher Jonathan once again, and I would like to welcome you all in our virtual presentation about nervous system. Let's get started. So, let's talk about nervous system. The nervous system is very important in helping to maintain the homeostasis or the balance of the human body. In our previous video about cardiovascular system and the muscular system, we made mention about those systems working together to for the body to maintain and function well. It's because the nervous system is like it's like the CPU in our computer, right? Without the nervous system, everything will not work. So this is the main frame. This is the CPU of our body, the nervous system, because it controls everything, the coordination, the maintenance, even the homeostasis or the balance. Okay. Basically, we have neuron as the basic unit. So let's talk about the structure and the function of neuron. These are the basic elements of nervous system. So this is basic. So this is the nucleus of the neuron. All these are dendrites. This is the axon right here, and this is the terminal end fibers. Okay. Now, neuron has three parts: the cell body, dendrites, and axon. So the cell body is the main processing center of the cell. Dendrites are the thin branching extension. Axon is the or which conducts nerve impulses. We call it the myelin sheath or the neurulema. Okay, so neurons, the terminal end fibers are located at the ends of the axon, and they transmit impulses, leaving the neuron across a synapse to the next neuron. I will show you the video later on how they works.
The neuron is a very fascinating and vital portion of the nervous system because it allows the nervous system to communicate with the rest of the body. The structure of the neuron offers key features to help it transmit messages across relatively long distances. To begin, the neuron has a cell body, which is also known as the soma, and which houses the cell nucleus. Next are the dendrites, which are tree-like branches that extend off of the soma. These are used by the neuron to detect both chemical and electrical stimuli. In the center of the neuron is the axon. The axon is the longest extension from the soma and can be up to 1 meter in length. It serves as the primary communication pipeline from one end of the neuron to the other. The axon hillock is the junction that connects the axon to the cell body. Covering the axon are myelin sheaths. Myelin sheaths are sections of fatty tissue that help to protect the axon and also help to speed up signal conduction along the axon. The gaps between myelin sheaths are called the nodes of Ranvier. These also aid in signal conduction, and they also allow nutrients and waste to enter and leave the axon. Finally, at the end of the axon are extensions that branch off to form several axon terminals. Now that we've covered the structure of the neuron, let's talk about how neurons come together to form a nerve cell network. Remember, neurons are supposed to send messages to each other, but how exactly does this happen? Message transmission happens at the synapse, or synaptic cleft, which is the junction between one neuron's axon terminals and another neuron's dendrites. This is the special area where chemical and electrical neurotransmitters are released and are picked up by the dendrites of the recipient nerve cell. As neurons pass information to the central nervous system, our body then interprets these messages as sights, sounds, aromas, and other sensations that allow us to observe the world around us.
All right, but basically this is the parts and function of the neuron. There are three types of neurons: the efferent neuron, afferent, and interneuron. Basically, from neuron A to neuron B, this is what's going on. They are guided by the neurotransmitter. Okay, and there's a synapse. Basically, the two properties are for excitability and conductivity. What's that mean? I will show you in the video later on. But there are three types: efferent, afferent, and interneuron. Once again, these are the three types. And the motor neuron look like this. Sensory neuron or the afferent neuron look like this. And the interneuron look like this. They are basically the same, but they perform different functions, as the word implies: motor, sensory, and interneuron. Okay. Let's talk about the neuroglia. Okay, for support, protect, connect, and remove debris from the nervous system. We have astrocytes. Astrocytes looks like this. Oligodendroglia look like this. Microglia is a smaller one. Look like this. Now, the nervous system has two major components. Remember this, okay? It has two major components: the CNS, PNS. Remember those, okay? Or the central nervous system, which comprises the brain and the spinal cord. The PNS are the nerves that lead into and out of the CNS. All right? So let's talk about the nervous system, the brain and the spinal cord. Okay, so it's very important to protect our brain. That's why we are wearing helmet when we are riding a motorbike, and so that it's going to be protected. Okay, and actually it's protected by the skull or the cranium. The spinal cord is embedded in our spinal column or the vertebrae. Central nervous system is responsible for higher neural functions such as memory, learning, emotion, reasoning, and all that. All the brain works. So it's very important. Okay. The brain weighs about 3 pounds in adult, made up 75% water, 20% oxygen, and has over 100 billion neurons. That's a lot of cells, right? There are cerebrum. Cerebrum is this part. Okay, diencephalon. The brainstem is this part, and the cerebellum. Let's talk about their function. So the brainstem, they are involved in visual reflexes, all the visual reflexes. Okay. There are two parts, the pons and the medulla oblongata. The pons are responsible for controlling certain respiratory function. Medulla oblongata are for swallowing, coughing, vomiting, and sneezing. And of course, there's a lot more. These are some of the basic function of the medulla oblongata. Cerebellum, on the other hand, is for maintaining posture, balance, and muscle tone. So if you are good in skateboarding, ice skating, what else? Any sports that requires balancing, that means your cerebellum is very active. Okay. Cerebrum. So let's talk about the cerebrum. Located above the cerebellum, contains two hemispheres of a cerebral cortex, and they are protected by corpus callosum. There are frontal lobe, temporal lobe, and occipital lobe. All right, I'm not going to talk much about this one. But basically, serves as relay center for sensation like heart rate. Okay, if you remember our discussion in cardiovascular system, they are involuntary. It's because the brain is pre-programmed for that. Heart rate, blood pressure, temperature control, behavioral responses, digestive function. Okay, so if you remember peristalsis, all right, and all the digestive functioning of the body, it's because they are all pre-programmed in our cerebrum, all right, and as well as the water and electrolyte balance. They are all the brain function. Now let's talk about the spinal cord. Spinal cord, very important. We have to protect our back, okay? Because there are delicate spinal tissues underlying our vertebrae. I'm not going to talk much about this one, okay? So once again, this is the central nervous system of the brain and the spinal cord. Very important because remember that our brain is protected by the bone. Okay, these are soft tissues, and these soft tissues must be protected by our skull or the cranium. Okay, very important that we need to wear and protect our head from injury because otherwise we're gonna have a problem because this is the CPU of our body. It controls everything. And I cannot emphasize that enough. Peripheral nervous system, on the other hand, has two major divisions, the somatic nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. Okay, or sometimes you call it sensory or afferent or motor, the afferent division. Okay, so these are all the cranial nerves in our body. I'm not going to talk much about this. I think you will study this in your higher biology class or classes. But basically, these are all the cranial nerves and its function. Okay, there are 12 sets actually. And in all those sets, they control specific organs or systems of the body. So as we studied before, they play a very important role in coordination, homeostasis, balance in our body. And without this system, our body will have a problem. And so that's the reason why we have to protect our brain, our spinal cord. And it's just because it controls specific parts of our body, and they are all wired in our organs. Okay, so once again, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you find this useful, and see you again in our future videos. Bye, everyone.